Hi, Graham. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Good. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. For everybody watching this who isn't familiar with Graham, this is Graeme Hall, who is the founder of Sales Blueprint and the now author of The Secrets to a Successful Sales Operation in a Private Equity-Backed Business. And Graham is here this morning to talk to us about his book and the important message that carries. It's literally just being published as we speak, and it will be available to buy in a few short days. Um, and he's going to tell us a bit about what inspired him to write the book and everything that's sort of behind that. So thanks again, Graham. I really appreciate you taking the time.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's an exciting time.
Yes, it is, absolutely. I know, published author. And it was, when did we start doing this? A few months, 3 months ago, I think, 4 months ago,
Yeah,
perhaps.
three and a half, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. And actually, I did say the book will be available in a few days. By the time this is published and everybody watching this, it will already be live and it'll be on Amazon. So you can search for it by Graeme Hall or by the title itself. Um,
Okay.
so, Graham, I would love to know, everybody watching would love to know, I already know this, of course, if you could just tell us a little bit, first of all, about yourself and your business.
Okay. Well, the short version is I run a business called Sales Blueprint, which we've been running for, in various guises, 15 years now. And I'd describe us as a sales improvement organization. So we work specifically with private equity-backed businesses. It's a niche that we came across some 10 years ago now and have worked in ever since. So we've become the kind of go-to experts in that field for sales operational improvement. And we've been doing it successfully. On average, when we do our thing, sales on average go up about 25% within 18 months. So, that's an average. So sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But as a result, people who've invested in a business and would like it to grow, and all the private equity firms we work with, their investment case is based upon top line growth. Clearly, if they can add 25% to that plan or improve it by 25% because it's not where it should be, they're interested in what we can do, and that's really what we do every day.
Wow. And those are some very impressive results.
Yeah, as I say, it's an average, and
Sure.
we're very realistic when we're talking to these people. We say, look, we don't double the sales of organisations, and there is an important part of the success story, and that is the management of the organisation itself. So
Hmm.
whatever we bring to the party, ultimately they have to buy into the way that works, and then effectively we build the foundations for their success and usually work with them for about 6, 9, maybe 12 months to make sure that they can deliver on that. But the real success comes after we've finished, because if we've got them involved and they understand the changes that we've made together, then they're able to continue to build on those changes, and that's where the real kicker comes.
That seems,
Usually
yeah.
the success is 2 or 3 years after we've first started,
Wow.
typically around the time the business gets sold. The success is much more than 25%. But as I say, we wouldn't claim we were the catalyst. We aren't the sole reason that's happened.
And what is so interesting about that and how you create value for the people that you work with, given that that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about this in a second, actually. It really, there are two important aspects to what you do. And one is being very, very clear about what aspects of sales performance you're there to help with, and the other is your methodology, which the book really goes into detail on, which is what people are able to take away and apply. But just before we go into that, could you just reiterate who is a typical client for you?
Well, it depends. We never forget that our real client is the business that the private equity firm has invested in.
Mm-hmm.
The private equity firms, if you like, are the introducers, and they're a kind of client because we work for them pre-deal
I see.
when they are paying the bill. But ultimately, the bulk of our business comes from the businesses they've invested in, and that's who we consider to be our client normally.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
typically, their organisations turning over somewhere between 10 and 50 million. We've proved that we're very sector agnostic. We always believe that to be the case. But in the early days, the first people said was, well, what have you done in this sector before? And certainly in the first 2 or 3 years, the answer was, well, absolutely nothing at all. To which our follow-up question is, why does it matter? Because ultimately, best practice is best practice. And if you're an expert in one particular industry, that's fine, but it's not transferable. Whereas if you're an expert, as we would claim to be these days, in best sales management practice, then that's applicable in any business. It doesn't matter to us what sector they're in. The only area we don't work in is retail, where the big levers to pull in terms of success are not the interaction with the salesperson. It's a lot more to do with location, stock availability, and price architecture. So we don't deal in any of those areas. But other than that, any organisation that fits that bill has a sales team of somewhere typically between 2 or 3 and 93. We can work with them and have done so. And that includes even sectors that you might think are not very sales focused, like domiciliary care, for example. You have to take the right approach for that industry. But even so, good selling is still good selling. It's a question of the environment that you do it in, when you do it, and who does it. But the core doesn't change.
Absolutely. And so if you are watching this and that sounds like a business environment that you work within, Graeme's book is definitely one for you. And talking of the book, what then inspired you to author a book on this? And what was the main message that you really wanted to get across to the people that you work with?
Well, I think one of the things that the message that I certainly start the book with is that there really isn't a qualification that you can get out there in sales or sales management. Sales management, there is limited availability, but unlike most professions, and we'd argue it is a profession, there isn't something on your CV that tells somebody that you know about this stuff. And we've been fortunate to learn from some very good people along the way, as well as make the sorts of mistakes that you can learn valuable lessons from. So having built that experience, we wanted to create, if you like, a repository where you could go for this best practice knowledge. And it was clear to us when we were talking to the sorts of organizations that the private equity firms we invest in, that they're relatively immature in terms of what the private equity world calls professionalization. In other words, there's a founder, they've done a brilliant job of building a business to a level. The private equity investment is designed to take it to the next level, and that's going to require a different set of management disciplines. And the question is, if that's true, where do you get those from? And the answer was, actually, I'm not sure. So we wrote the book to satisfy that need, really, and say, look, when you move to the next stage, this is the knowledge that you're going to need. It's taken us a long time to develop some of it, as I say, to learn from some very good people around all of this. And we just wanted to say, look, let's put all this in one place. It becomes hopefully a reference guide for people in that situation. So that's the primary driver behind writing it and writing it now.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think, you've also just touched on a point there, which is to put that in a book as opposed to, like, it's too big a message and too important a message. It wouldn't go on a brochure, for example, nor would it go in a video or, to package all of that knowledge and experience in the right way, in a way that really creates value for people reading it, and they can really, really learn something from it. It really needed to be in a book format, didn't it? Rather than something that you would traditionally associate with more marketing, for example.
Well, I think the book format is useful because despite the world being very digital these days, people still do read books. It was written primarily for the private equity investors, what typically get called general partners, and also the operational partners within those firms who work with their portfolios. And those people still do like actual physical books. And I also think what we were trying to create was something that people could read a bit of according to the situation that they're in or the particular challenge they're in, take something useful that they can actually implement, and then read another bit later rather than have to read the whole damn thing. So it would, had we created it as a series of, let's say, short videos, it would have been a big series of videos. Yeah. So it really wasn't the right format. And we don't have a company brochure these days. Most of what we do is web or video based. So it complemented what we do, but it was really written primarily as a book because we felt that was the best way to get the message to the people who we wanted to convey it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. And so with that said, how your book, your physical copy of your book is it's going to be in your hands very, very soon.
Yeah.
And I know that you're ordering a bit of a stockpile for yourself straight off the bat. So you've got them right on hand to hand out to people, or to sell to people. That is a good question. In fact, how do you plan to distribute the book now that it's out there and published?
Well, we did some marketing 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was basically two databases, really. One was former clients of ours who we said, look, would you be interested in seeing, we've worked together, we've had success together, maybe this will be a useful reminder for you. And we've had quite a few people come back to us and say, yes, I'd like a complimentary copy. And being clients, we offered to them free. And in the private equity world, we've again told them that this is available. We've offered the first, I think it was 200 people, a complimentary copy, most of which we've now had subscribed. So from then on, what we'll do is simply say, we'll use it in a variety of ways. We'll either market to people and they can buy it, which is great, but we didn't write it to make money out of book sales. But primarily, and I'll give you an example. I was with somebody I've known for a long time who's at a new firm he's just set up. And I was with him yesterday and I explained where we were with that. And he said that would be a brilliant reminder to be able to dip in and out of, depending upon the management team we sat in front of. So he said, yeah, if you send me one, that'd be great. So I think it's going to be more of that than as I say, we don't expect to sell lots of copies at lots of money. That's not the driver that we had when we wrote it.
No, and it was very. You're absolutely right. I mean, I know, working with many authors who are first-time authors. Sometimes there's a need to manage expectations in that case. But you're right. The power of the book isn't really in the book sales. That's not how it's going to help you in the business most. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, as I said, we wanted to create a relatively easy to read reference guide within that niche that we operate in. And if we've done that, then that's our aim achieved. If we happen to sell a few as well, great, but that's not why we did it.
No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And what as well is very interesting about you and this book, as you've just touched on, it's the first and only book, as far as we're aware, in your niche. Is that correct? Got that right?
It is. Yeah, it is. We did some research which suggested, although there are lots and lots of sales management books pretty much anywhere you care to look, most of them are very generic, and most of them haven't been published or updated for 10 years or so. So we wanted to capture the essence of now, and also the particular dynamics that affect a private equity-backed business. It's not the same as a privately owned business, partly because there's usually a drive. There's an obvious drive for growth, as I've mentioned, but there's a drive for acquisition, for example, and there's also a desire to realise value for all the shareholders, not just the ones who initially invest. And therefore, there's a sense of urgency about growing this business within an agreed plan. And that brings different dynamics to the way the board operates. For example, one of the reasons we talk in the book about finding the right talent and bringing them on board successfully, and I'm sure anybody listening to this will know finding good salespeople is the perennial problem, partly because not many people know what good looks like, frankly, but good salespeople are still rare. But one of the challenges, and the reason we focused on part of it was to say, look, this is what happens when you do find good people, and how to make sure that you keep them, is because in the world we operate, actually recruiting new salespeople is usually easy to get the funding, because they are more than self-financing. So if you've got a growth plan that says we need to go from X to Y over the next 3 years, and you said, well, actually, if we brought 4 more people in, we believe the market's there, and we think if we use the right numbers, we can deliver X, then the private equity backers will say, okay, get on and do it then. And that brings a particular different dynamic than a business that says, well, should we invest at the moment, or can we just stick with what we... That's different. So the book was written specifically for those people who want to grow rapidly and do so within an agreed time frame.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I mean, the fact that, as you say, you've claimed your niche. You've made this information available to people who didn't know where to access it before. So not only are you now you're a company founder, you're now author. You're helping clients and prospects, which is spending your time creating value for them is something that's what every business owner is aiming to do at the end of the day. And you've also now claimed the intellectual space that you're occupying. So. Congratulations, because that is no small feat. So I'm really, really excited to for your book to be out there, and just know that a lot of people reading this are going to be very, very grateful that you took the time to put it together. And so on that note, thank you very much indeed for joining me and talking about this in a bit more detail. Can you tell people watching where they can find more about you and Sales Blueprint, and just reiterate the title of your book? And I can do a screen share to show the book cover in a sec as well.
Inevitably, we've got a website, which is salesblueprint.co.uk. We don't use Facebook, but we use all the other social media channels, so we're not difficult to find. Or they can obviously contact me direct. My email address is ghall@salesblueprint.co.uk. As I say, that it was written, although we've entitled the book "The Secrets to a Successful Sales Operation." In reality, they're not that secret. That most of what people say to us when we do our thing is, well, this is fairly common sense, and we say it is absolutely, but it's not common practice. And the aim of the book was to help people turn it into common practice, because we know it works.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. It's very, very exciting. And so the Secrets to a Successful Sales Operation in a Private Equity-Backed Business is available to buy on Amazon, and you can search by the title or by Graeme Hall. And I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you with the progress of the book. And I can't wait to catch up as time goes on and hear how it's all going. Thank you very much, Graeme.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.